Welcome. This is a pre-quarter, so these teams are fighting for their survival here in this crucial matchup. They've been training for months and years leading up to this moment, and it literally all comes down to this at this point. A loss sees them out of the tournament. At least they will still play some games, but they'll only be placing games. The Philippines were second in Pool G. Great Britain came third in Pool E. And the top teams out of each pool went straight through to quarters. And these guys now fighting for the opportunity to continue in this tournament. And it's my pleasure to welcome to the broadcast Australian World Games player, Michaela Dignam. Mickey, wonderful to have you here.
Thanks, Cole. Very exciting to be here. I just arrived in Perth yesterday and already seen some sensational ultimates. So pretty excited to be watching this men's pre-quarter to see who can take it out today.
So the Philippines have started the game on offense, and the wind, not heavy at the moment, but if anything, moving right to left on your screen. So the Philippines will be very, very keen. And just as I say that, commentator's curse, Great Britain's managed to force a turnover. And they'll be looking to use the wind to their advantage. And Mickey, wouldn't they love to take an early break in this game?
That'd be sensational. Get them off to it. Beg your pardon, that was GB started on O, and then there's a turn. Missed throw from guys, downwind, so very difficult conditions. Less hot today in Perth, we're sitting at a nice 25. It was 33 degrees yesterday. Lots of teams, especially the European teams, very challenged with the heat, but much milder today.
Absolutely, Nikki. It's been pretty oppressive conditions for some of the time, and I'm sure the players would welcome the fact that it's a little cooler today, though no less windy than we've seen on previous days, and it's certainly been challenging. Games in the 9 o'clock slot were heavily wind affected, and generally throughout the day the wind gets heavier and heavier, so we'd expect the wind to play a big part in this matchup as well. Philippines, their D-line doing pretty well, controlling the disc, and GB have just managed to steal it back.
Looks like Canning's driving most of this offense, and a nice easy score to Conrad Wilson, number 14. One down.
So GB with an offensive hold to start the game, but it wasn't easy. They gave up the disc twice, and the Philippines were working against the wind, and GB managing to hang on to the disc and finally push it into the end zone.
We've seen some pretty interesting games as a consequence of this wind. I think it's acted as a great equaliser in lots of the games that historically teams might have thought would be easier to win. But yeah, we've seen some impressive performances from, I guess, some teams that we might not have heard so much of before. Ireland had a pretty impressive win, and Australia dominated against Canada early in the tournament, in the men's division that is.
Yeah, I think what we see at the under-24s, Mickey, is kind of it's the front of the curve in terms of development. Countries are developing their Frisbee skills so quickly at the moment, and I think that you see that first in the younger age-restricted divisions. And we've certainly seen some countries, particularly from Southeast Asia, who've been doing phenomenally well. The Philippines now, certainly not as tall as their British opponents, but they're known for their quickness and the extreme endurance that they develop, playing really regularly on the beach. So let's see what their offense can cook up here. They're set up in a pretty standard horizontal stack, and that's a very early deep strike, but it's not a connection. Villanueva unable to get to that one in time. So now GB with a chance to try to break up wind.
Yeah, those downwind leading throws are so difficult. The wind just whipping the disc down. You've got to be a very competent thrower to sit it up nicely for a player to run onto there. Go. So it looks like GB's set up a bit of a side stack on the side closest to us, and an early turn for them.
Yeah, the wind getting on top of that disc and pushing it down, Mickey. As we see a lovely lefty IO backhand for the score from Gerard Castor. And he has moved the disc through to Wilbur Ogok for the score, and the Philippines have registered their first score of the game. It's 1-1. So it'll be interesting to see if GB can utilise their height against the Filipinos here. The Filipinos, obviously a relatively short team in the scheme of things, and often in that case we see North American and European teams look to use their physical stature to their advantage. Mickey, do you reckon that's going to work in the win today?
Look, absolutely. I think both teams are finding their feet at this early stage. You know, it's the first game of the day. The wind conditions, although they've been similar in the past few days, you just need to get a feel for it when you're out there on the field. So I'm hoping we'll see a few more downwind huck completions once each team has a feel for it, and that will definitely benefit GV in the air, given their advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Philippines, if they want to go deep, they've got to time their cut really well. They don't have the benefit of being able to camp under the disc if it sits, so their throws have got to be spot on and their cut timing's got to be awesome. So they're pulling into a pretty stiff breeze here, and that is Matt Crespo sending the disc downfield towards GB.
So we've got 3 handlers back. Looks like a horizontal stack downfield. The cuts are coming from a very deep position. We've just got a nice swing. And lovely centering from Wilson.
Filipino defenders typically standing behind their GB opponent because they're worried about those deep strikes, and they've pulled it off.
And that was Axel Amala, number 10 from GB, throwing that downwind leading huck throw that we were just discussing. Looks like they've got a feel for it now.
Yep, they've dialed in, Mickey, and the Filipinos are setting up behind their GB opponents in the hopes of pushing them under back towards the disc. And on that occasion, they weren't able to prevent the GB deep strike, and that's a pretty quick score from Great Britain. They look very composed. So 2-1 to GB. And so far, both teams have completed every downwind offensive point, and we're yet to see a break. Though the Filipinos did manage to take the disc off the Brits a couple of times in the first point. Since then, it's been pretty smooth sailing. We're just getting a wave up here in the commentary booth from British coach Brummy, Sean Scone. Great bloke, former World Games player, and he is a legend of British Ultimate. Wow, that's a fantastically weighted deep strike, hauled in by Villanueva, who's now looked to the end zone, but a major miscommunication. And a British defender able to simply waltz in and make that D. That's a wasted opportunity for the Filipinos. They'll be really disappointed with that.
Sensational throw from that thrower. And it looks like they're setting up this side stack again, isolating a cutter. And now we've got a lovely upwind huck. Oh, just couldn't complete.
Great
back
bid.
on D. Yeah, great bid.
Great bid from Nick Dodd. And the Filipinos now with the disc back in hand. This is John Flores. And another deep strike. Looks like that's going to be cut off. Oh! Straight over the top of the British defender.
I'll be kicking himself, I think. He was very close.
The wind can play havoc, and now a simple little flip into the end zone. That's a goal to Richie Mariano. And the Filipinos hold. It's 2-2. Wow, the wind plays havoc with the disc in the air, doesn't it, Mickey?
Absolutely.
So
it's all downwind points so far.
And the wind's seemingly a little more consistent than it has been at times. We've seen occasions where it's changing direction regularly. At the moment, pretty consistently right to left, and if anything, a little bit behind us. And picking up pretty strongly now. We're having some issues with accessories here in the commentary booth flying around. Ruben, what's it like down on ground level?
Yeah, it's pretty windy down here as well.
Ruben Berg, our chief game advisor, mic'd up for the game, gives us a wonderful opportunity to listen in to the discussions when there are calls on the field. Of course, Ultimate Frisbee officiated solely by the players at World Championship level, and they are assisted with the rules and perhaps another perspective sometimes by the game advisors. But all the calls are made and resolved by the players themselves, fostering a great sense of trust among the entire Frisbee community. So the Filipinos, through Matt Crespo, pulling to the Brits.
And we're seeing this horizontal look again. It looks like the Brits, when they're going with the wind, they're playing a horizontal.
That's a great D. Filipino hand managed to get in there. That was Crespo, who's had quite an impact on this game so far. He's very tall by Filipino standards. It would be quite a flip for the Filipinos if they were able to break up wind here.
Excellent D from the Brits. We're seeing fantastic pressure around the disc there. Meant that a difficult throw into the wind resulted in a turn.
Yeah,
And
great
now
dump D.
Moving it really quickly. Oh, unfortunate drop there. Guys will be a bit disappointed with that. Hopefully we can get another block for the Brits.
Michael Guys doing the right thing though, immediately getting himself back on D. One thing that's key with Frisbee is when a turn is made, you've got to immediately shift mindset. Oh, and it's a bubble, and the wind getting underneath it, and unfortunately Christian De Vera wasn't able to hold that in. An immediate deep shot.
Wow. Beautiful leading IO huck from Amala. Seals the deal, and Brits hold serve.
That was, it's got to be said, a perfect throw.
Yeah.
He could not have made that easier for his receiver to bring down. So again, we see another offensive hold. The Brits are up 3-2.
And choosing that IO channel rather than the outside-in channel, more difficult with your mark on you, but it was just the fat side of the field, so much space out there and completely unexpected by the defenders.
So help us newbies out, Mickey, the fat side of the field. What's the fat side of the field?
I guess the fat side of the field is where the bulk of the space is. So just then we saw a lot of flow from the Brits in the sideline closest to the commentary booth, which meant there was a bit more clutter over here. A lot of players and their defenders concentrated around this side, but you've got this beautiful side. The fat side's typically the break side as well. So by, you know, chucking in that IO break to the fat side, there was just acres and acres of space, mild exaggeration there, for the for the cutter to run into and receive the disc with relatively little pressure.
So great insight from absolutely elite player here. We're privileged to have Mickey D in the booth with us, and that looked like it hurt a bit. I believe we have a foul called. The throw coming from Wilbur Ogok, and unfortunately Dan Avena.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
So that was
Foul
Ollie
called.
Dodd with the
Uncontested?
layout mid, number 56.
Uncontested foul call. Great spirit from Dodd. And we will see Avena pick up the disc and bring it in on stall 0. Oh, great bid. That was a nicely timed launch, and unfortunately that one's hit the grass. GB with an opportunity to strike upfield.
Oh.
But
Bit rushed there, I think. Sometimes the hard thing to do is actually stopping yourself and taking the easy dump. But,
totally agree. Rowledge was wide open downfield there, and unfortunately the flick did not have the rotation required to give it the stability it needed to make the trip. So the Filipinos again in control of the disc. Wilbur Agok has uncorked a missile. It is a piece of pie though, and the tall British defenders.
Rowledge there. Got an extra foot on most of the Filipino players there, so took it down relatively easily.
You can't teach height.
And it looks like we've got Turville picking up the disc here.
This is a 4-on-1 contest, and I think the British players brought it down. The question will be, was he in bounds or not? If his foot landed on the sideline, he's out. He needs his foot wholly within the lines in order to be in bounds.
Looks like our game advisors are getting involved now to resolve the situation.
We caught at the same time, so it's my disc anyway.
So the British player saying that the disc was both caught at the same time between offender and defender. If that happens, the offensive player does retain possession. The question then is, was the offensive player in bounds when the disc was caught? And it sounds as if he was outside. So another well-spirited discussion. We've got the Philippines picking up.
So that's great spirit from Ollie Dodd. He obviously had his mind fully focused on catching the disc, which doesn't give him a great perspective as where his foot landed. And he's done the right thing there and consulted people with a better view. And upon learning that he was out of bounds, he's very willingly given up the disc. And on that note, the Filipinos have done the same and the English have got it back. Wow, that was a great D from Magok, rising high over the pack. Mickey looks to me at this moment like both teams are trying to use the long game to score. Can you see this strategy working in the long term?
Look, it's a good question. It's worked early for them. And at the moment, we have seen a lot of match defense. We haven't seen any zone looks or whatnot. I think that'll definitely change as the game advances. I think the long option's a great option, but you need to be able to balance those throws in the wind and need to be able to sit them out nicely, and that seems to be presenting a challenge to both teams. The Philippines seem to look their best based on what I've seen when they're just chipping it away, working it up slowly. That seems to be what they do well based on what I've observed in some of their other games.
Well, they've certainly got quickness on their side, low centre of gravity and powerful legs. They are agile little players. And there looks to have been a foul called on that throw.
Uncontested.
So it's the responsibility of the defender not to make contact with the thrower as they release the disc. And John Flores understand. Oh, big layout bid. That was close.
Thinks of launching it, chooses a safer option. And another turn. Philippines with possession now.
Pretty scrappy point at the moment.
The Philippines have 3 players all within about 5 metres of the disc. That can't make it easy.
Wow, that was a laser pass through the centre of the stack. And the Filipinos now. It was a bid that had to come from number 15 on the British team, William Rowledge, because if he didn't make that bid, the throw was definitely going to go up. But of course, with him laying on the ground, there's not a lot more he can do on defence. And the Filipinos finally, after a bit of a scrap, pushed the disc in for another score. And they level it up at 3-3. As we see Rowledge's speculative bid on the replay. It was all he could do to try and stop the score there, but he was between a rock and a hard place, and they've put it in. So it'll be interesting to see if the British can continue to utilise their long game, moving downwind, or if the Filipinos will be able to manufacture an upwind break.
It's interesting, when the Brits have been going downwind, they've been playing a horizontal stack, presumably to make a lot of deep space to throw into. And when they've been playing upwind, we've seen a bit more side stack with a player isolation. So it'll be interesting to see if they do a similar thing here, or if indeed the defense changes, so they have to adapt again.
Yeah, you do wonder if the Filipinos will look to implement a zone at some point. Though it has to be said, their match D has managed to get the disc off the Brits at least a few times. But good for every team to have a few different defensive looks.
We're seeing this 3-4 setup again. Nicholas Pearce with the lovely outside in flick to the end zone.
Yeah, that was as easy as you like. Very competent offensive hold for the British. It's always nice to get your O-line on and off the ground quickly. Make the other team work harder.
And I think the receiver was Conrad Wilson.
So you can see that pass really under no pressure whatsoever. Lovely sitting flick. And Mickey, as you said, the challenge throwing downwind is making sure you don't put too much energy on the disc and send it out of bounds. And that was a wonderful throw and weighted perfectly for the receiver's arms. So the Brits are up 4-3. We have seen holds on every point so far. And the Filipino O-line back out there.
Great call, George. Here we go.
Nice upwind pull received by Ogok. He is one of their key central handlers. Gerard Castor as well, seeing a lot of disc touches. Filipinos seemingly isolating their handler set to try to move the disc forward here. Their cutter's not offering a lot. Nice upline cut from Gerard Castor. Wow, they're moving the disc laterally now to make space. De Leon, just a couple of metres from the end zone. And a little lefty backhand from John Flores through to Quinjune Villanueva, I believe, was the receiver. And that was a very neat hold from the Filipinos. Let's check in with our chief game advisor, Ruben Berg.
Yeah, so just on that point, we had a travel that was called during the play when the thrower still had possession. And here in the WU24 rules, I think quite a good thing is that that doesn't actually stop play. The thrower just goes back to the correct position. Everyone else can keep moving and play keeps flowing, which is what we like to see.
Thanks, Ruben. In fact, that travel was resolved so quickly.
We didn't even know.
Mickey, I didn't even notice it.
That's what the rules are designed to do, I think, make for a spectator-friendly, smooth-flowing game. So, excellent. And we've seen a very well-spirited game so far, I think.
Absolutely. The other recent rule change that I love is the allowability to wait up to 2 seconds before making a pick call, so that if a pick doesn't affect the play, you can let it run for 2 seconds and catch up to the player you were defending and not interrupt the play. And it's a great initiative by WU24 to keep the play flowing, I think, and it's definitely reduced the number of pick calls. So the Brits again on O.
We've got a Marla picking up. He seems to really be the anchor of this O-line, one of the more competent throwers, and he's presented a lot of amazing long options, such as that. And what a clean score. Looks like that was Sam Wilson.
So, we talked about a few different defensive looks. The Filipinos are walking, you might even describe it as trudging off the field now. They came out with a zone, and it was wholly ineffective, you'd have to say. The Brits finding no trouble at all to move the disc. And that's the decisive move there. And just a quick flip back to the end zone. What we saw there as well, if you catch the disc and in the course of slowing down, travel into the end zone, you need to move yourself back out of the end zone and establish a pivot on the end zone line in order to continue play. Otherwise, the opposition can call a travel.
Here we've got the signature Philippines, all arms in the air. I bet they'll be good on the dance floor on Saturday night.
Absolutely. If you've ever played a beach tournament in the Philippines, you know these guys, they know how to play frisbee and they also know how to party.
Oh, sensational bid. That was number 33, Gabriel Schechter.
Got high and horizontal, did Schechter. That was a monster tee. And the wind now coming almost from directly behind the screen. And it's very heavy cross field.
So we've got Higgins picking up here. And there's Schechter again. Body on the line. Timeout called.
So Schechter keen to take this opportunity to score an upwind break here, you would think. And he's asking for a moment to plan. And a big thanks to the broadcast team and to Finley Watson, who is watching online. I've got no idea what time it is for you, Finley, but
From
hello
Scotland,
the team.
apparently.
Watching in Scotland. So what are you expecting to see out of this timeout, Mickey? What do you think the Brits are looking to put in place here?
Look, I think it looks like their preference is for a 2 and 5, so 2 handlers back, 5 players downfield stack. We haven't seen the horizontal going upwind. Hopefully they can use the lateral space, move it to the other side, and punch it in. But they'll have to be very patient, I think. The timeout call was probably quite strategic, I think. Just hitting the reset button and get your head in the game. Because we have seen some pretty scrappy ultimate when there have been blocks, and I think they just want to clean it up, seal the deal, get one break up, because as we've already seen, it's very difficult to get breaks in these conditions, so even one could be the difference between a win and a loss.
Yeah, absolutely. The mental game of ultimate, switching mindset from the frenetic, aggressive pace that you need to bring to D, and then the calm, careful decision-making that needs to be exercised on O.
Look, that proved me wrong. They're doing a ho, so there you go.
Commentator's curse strikes again. And so, as you mentioned earlier, Mickey, horo stacks generally looking to open up short and deep spaces. The vertical stack looking to open up lateral spaces. So the Brits run a pretty conventional strike play. That's a set play to get them moving. And they are meters from the line now.
Again, I think they're looking to get it to the other side of the field where all the space is, but it's proving so challenging given the conditions and the incredible defense of the Filipinos. It was looking very concentrated when the disc comes to this side.
Filipinos doing a good job to shut down that upline strike cut. And there's been a mac on that, but it's not going to be enough. And we've got a score from number 8. Seb Allen has hauled in this decisive upwind break. Mickey, that could be telling for the course of this game.
First break of the game, they will be stoked with that. And yeah, great outcome from a timeout, really. That's exactly what you want.
There has been some chatter online about the the effectiveness of a timeout and how often teams are actually able to punch it in. As we saw, their set play didn't get them to the end zone, but they were able to play with patience, use the available open options, and protect possession of the disc. As we see the Filipino player, I believe, got a hand on that, but the rotation of the disc and the assistance of the wind carried it back in. Let's have a look again. As the throw goes up.
And that was Schechter, the same person who got the layout bid that actually got them that break in the first place. Quite instrumental in that point.
Oh, definite Mac. Definite touch on defence there from Gerard Castor. And the old adage, catch your Ds, rings true again, though I'm not sure he would have had much luck catching that one. It was whistling past him. And unfortunately, getting a hand on the disc wasn't enough in this case. And now the Filipinos have got a task ahead of them. The wind is pretty close to a gale, and their offensive line has got to move it all the way upwind.
Looks like a very similar defensive line to what we saw the last point from GB. Schechter's on again.
So GB just running straight match D, one-on-one. But it's a bit junky. Players willing to poach off.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of swapping from the Brits, the 3 defenders near the disc, creating some confusion.
And it's worked because Schechter's got the disc in hand, moves it quickly.
And another break to the Brits.
It can so often happen in strong upwind, downwind games. A single upwind break very regularly converts into a second as your defence gets to line up coming downwind, and the Brits have made no mistake there. They played a poachy match D, I would describe it as. They were willing to sag off the handlers a bit to clog the lane, the space that the Filipinos are trying to push the disc through, which forces the Filipinos to move the disc laterally a lot, make a lot of throws, and in this kind of a wind, it's really just a matter of time before that goes awry. And the Brits now in the lead, 7 goals to 4, and they'll be looking to get this game to half-time. Nice little flip into the end zone there for the goal. So, Filipinos now going to have to step it up, or this will mark the end of the road for them on their march to a World Championship gold. This match is, of course, a pre-quarter, meaning that the winner advances to the quarterfinals and the loser works their way through the placing games to find their final finishing position. And at the moment, Mickey, GB in the box seat to take this out.
Certainly looking that way.
So here go the Filipino offense. GB's D looking very junky in front of the disc again.
Yeah. Raul just standing about 10 metres deeper of the deepest Filipino player, just making sure he sends a clear message, you are not getting it over me. So it's looking very cluttered around the disc because of that. Lots of swapping between the the front 3 players, beg your pardon.
And a lot of pressure around the disc there too. We saw a nice layout bid. And the Filipinos, for their part, are doing a phenomenal job of controlling the disc in really blustery conditions. And Christian de Vera has decided that he didn't like the look of what was in front of him, and he's elected to take a timeout in the hopes of guaranteeing that they're able to push this one in.
That was a really clean transition from the loose, sort of saggy defence that the British team was playing, and then to a really clean, tight match D as they approach the end zone. But that's...
So big thanks to STA Travel, our preferred travel partner. They have done a wonderful job assisting us getting all our volunteers and crew to this event. And if you're next looking to plan a trip around Australia, we'd very much appreciate if you gave the team at STA Travel a call, because they're doing wonderful things supporting the sport of Frisbee, and they deserve your custom. So the Brits breaking from their timeout. They're looking very confident now, Mickey. Walking with heads up, shoulders back.
What do you think the Filipino team will be looking for here, Cole?
Well, in all honesty, I didn't think they needed a timeout. All their offense was marching down the field, looking very confident, and frankly, I think if they were able to continue what they were doing before, that'd be enough. I suppose what they might be trying to do is create some kind of isolation play. It's not uncommon when you're this close to the end zone to try to turn Frisbee into a one-on-one game. It's very difficult to win a one-on-one matchup. And so lots of end zone setups are designed to give a single cutter as much space as possible in the end zone and force the defense to either put that player into double coverage or burn their defender. But the Filipinos look like they've got 4 handlers out, 3 cutters in the end zone, and the Brits are setting up some poachers on either side. Looks like the force is going to be flick away from the broadcast, so we'll see where the cutters move. So the Brits are able to shut that play down, and we're back to playing Frisbee, and they've done it.
They did it.
That was nice work from the Filipinos.
Lots of those throws, so zappy, would have the wind behind them as well. Catching, you know, it would feel like a bullet coming at you. So they did well to keep that possession there as well.
Absolutely. It's really difficult to, I think, get a sense on the broadcast of just how windy it is here. And not just windy, but blustery. The wind changes direction constantly, and it can lead to some quite unpredictable behavior in the disc. And the way to combat that is to piff the disc as hard as you can. And as you say, Mickey, that can make the catching rather more challenging. But the Filipinos have done a wonderful job here. That throw had a lovely amount of touch, and Castor able to catch it easily enough. This throw, on the other hand, had some spice on it. So it was well handled by Villanueva to catch that one and put the pass in for the goal. Brits with the opportunity to take half now. The score is 7-5, and half-time comes at when the first team reaches a score of 8 or a half-time cap.
And here we are, Amala again anchoring this O-line. We're seeing the cuts from the Brits coming from really deep, which does make a deep huck quite challenging, but looks like they're still creating a lot of space.
Oh, wow, that was close to the back end zone line.
So that was Richardson with a beautiful IO leading flick.
The Brits are lucky in the middle of that point there. There was a throw that was definitely thrown over the top of the intended receiver. And fortunately, they had a cutter behind him with the wherewithal to realise that.
Habgood bringing that one relatively easily. It looks like there might have been a small miscommunication between the British players about who was going to get the glory of that goal, but they resolved it, and Habgood bringing that one down within the line. And that brings us to half-time.
Half-time. It's been an entertaining matchup. The Brits with that one decisive upwind break, and that's given them the opportunity, as we see Habgood just bringing that in before the end of the field ran out of road. So that one upwind break from the Brits has really been the difference so far. They started on offense, and the upwind break gave them the opportunity to break immediately again downwind. We've got a 7-minute gap for halftime now. We will leave you with some highlights for the first half and be back with you in a few moments.
Vibing on myself, I can't trust fake energy. Yeah, I'm hella ill, I swear that it's my destiny. Kamikaze catching bodies, cause it kage, what you mean? Right, yeah, okay. Vibing on myself, I can't trust fake energy. Yeah, I'm hella ill, I swear that it's my destiny. Kamikaze catching bodies, cause it kage, what you mean? Right, yeah. Hey, young dude with a nice face. Only pour through, that's an eye face. Got things to do, hands screw, brain food, that do, send nudes over my space. Face through, clean on some water, ayy. Shorty pump spread, that's your daughter, ayy. So I'm in the mood like skirt, but she wanna flirt. After she heard, now I'm the dude that she's after. Cannot blame her, I'm dapper. How come no one was feeling me back when I was a rapper? Back when Roshi was master, carving heart on the dicker. Please don't mess up my fingers, I'm counting wins with my fingers. Nah, I'm a sight, but I'm killer. Koski clan chillin' villas, pocket juice like I'm Chancellor. My flow like honey, go figure. Junkie tripping of life, like mix it up with the dirty. Poppin' Skittles with Sprite and attitude like don't touch me. Happy thoughts and pinky rings, only brighter things. Money talks when you're feeling weak. Sad satisfy their needs. Pull up skirt and hop on the beat. Pull up on your turf, energy got me feeling clean. Holy water scene, vibes bump and grind it. Yeah, just don't you stop it. Yeah, I'm seeing changes, but I haven't even started. Yeah, get low and pop it. Yeah, and don't you stop it. Yeah, I'm feeling different, but because I'm low key popping. Yeah, vibing on myself, I can't trust fake energy. Yeah, I'm hella ill, I swear that it's my destiny. Kamikaze, catching bodies, cause it kage, what you mean? Yeah, okay. Vibing on myself, I can't trust fake energy. Yeah, I'm hella ill, I swear that it's my destiny. Kamikaze, catching bodies, cause it kage, what you mean? Right, yeah, right, yeah.
What you might gain or what you might lose. The scales all on one side, so what you gon' do? The world's a stage, so make your move. This is food for thought, so eat that fruit. You're looking at her, she looking at you, but everybody else is looking at her too. What you gon' say, what you gon' do? Don't be too rough, don't act too smooth. Just be yourself and you can't lose. She just finished her drink, so go buy two. I don't think so. You know that I like you. I don't think so. You don't know what I know. Right now, when made me feel like it's high school. I don't think so. I'm shy at first and I think so. You know you're making my heart race. I wish that I could just say hey. You're first. Oh, you know from around here. I'm too shy to say stay. Your friends and my friends. We could just be friends. Hang out on the weekend. I wanna give you a reason. Let me tell you a secret. I can tell you can keep it. Gotta give me your number. If you tell me you're leaving, mama, I wanna get down. Mama, I don't know how. Mama, I wanna show out, but I'm so shy when I come round. Mama, I wanna know now. My time's got me wiped out, but your eyes are the stars out. Let me ask where your life bout. Like right now, can you tell me what your eye found? Lost string before I bounce. Let me ask you this: do you dance? Does your God permit? Cause you got a body that look like you mastered it. You wanna drink? Cause I'm about to get the lagers in. You want a selfie? I hope you're not a narcissist. Do you like Mary Jane like Peter Parker did? In that case, well, what you doing after this? Me and my boy going to where the party is. Bring your friend by, you can leave your car. I don't think so. Girl, you know that I like you. I don't think so. You don't know what I know. Right now, when made me feel like it's high school. I don't think so. I'm shy at first and you know you're making my heart race. I wish that I could just say hey. You're first. Oh, you're not from around here. I'm too shy to say stay. Your friends and my friends. We could just be friends. Hang out on the weekend. I wanna give you a reason. Let me tell you a secret. I can tell you can keep it. Gotta give me your number. If you tell me you're leaving.
Welcome back to the second half of this GB v Philippines pre-quarter. And the teams largely traded throughout the first half until GB was able to complete that decisive upwind break. A timely timeout called by Schechter to get them set up. And they were able to march up the field, I should say, and score. And that's put the Philippines on the back foot now. And we have a pick call. Uncontested.
Tick.
No, it's a foul, beg your pardon. Foul called. And uncontested, so the stall count will drop back down to 0. Ruben, can you offer some clarity as to what happened there? I think I've misunderstood.
It was a foul called by the defence against the offence off the disc.
Fantastic, thank you. And the Philippines unable to complete their John Flores. Could not get low enough to scoop. Oh, what a layout bin attempt! That was massive. He slid into next week, did Paul Marici Mariano. And it wasn't successful, but it was worth doing anyway, if only for the style points. And that is a wonder. Oh, goodness me. Number 44 has unfortunately put that down. Jonah Leake, he'll be disappointed with that. That was a golden opportunity to score another upwinder. And Mickey, you've got to take your chances when they present.
Amen. All I can say is I feel for Jonah. I've been in that situation before, and it's absolutely gutting. And yeah, hopefully I can get it back. But yeah, that's the cruel game.
So Filipino offense with another opportunity to work down the field. And they use that short, quick movement so well. Along with cheeky break throws like that one, but unfortunately, Flores again unable to bring that one in. As we said earlier, a lot of these discs are being thrown with a fair bit of power in an attempt to keep control over them in the wind, and that can make them difficult to control when they get to their target.
Schechter picking up, lovely eye to centre the disc. One of the hardest things to do is centering from the sideline. He did a very impressive job there. Fantastic, and that was Anatoly bringing that one in. The Brits seem to be very good at throwing these eye or leading throws to, you know, the fat side of the field, if you will, that where there's a lot of space.
Absolutely, that's particularly difficult when you're throwing into a wind like this. You need to get perfect rotation, perfect stability on the disc. Otherwise, it'll tend to curl over and swing away to the left if your flick's coming from a right-hander. And Anatoly was just in bounds when he caught that one. It was starting to curl away, but it was good enough. And the Brits have got another upwind break. The Filipinos now are going to have to do something pretty magical to keep in this match.
That sets GB up very, very well for the beginning of the second half, beg your pardon. Having 2 upwind breaks, you've got to have a pretty strong fight left in you to come back on top of that, given the conditions that we've seen so far.
So, if we go down to Ruben Berg, you might have seen our game advisors wearing yellow, green, and sometimes even white to differentiate themselves from the players. Let's hear from Ruben a bit about the game advisor position and how they're helping the players officiate this match.
Nothing without this.
Yeah, so we're just here to try and provide advice for the players. They're obviously still responsible for making all the calls, and we're just there to help them out if they need. If they want a bit more information about the rules or a bit more information about what actually took place, we can provide them that information, but they're ultimately responsible for making all the decisions. We're also here so that the people watching and the people who are spectators can see as much ultimate as they can, so there's not any unnecessary long stoppages, because we want ultimate, and that's what we try and get out there on the field.
So a quick travel call there, Ruben. How have the players found playing with the assistance of game advisors? For some of them, this would be their first experience, I imagine, playing with game advisors. What's the feedback been like from the players?
So far, the feedback's been really positive. The interactions always seem to go really well, but we're always open to feedback from anybody. If they want to provide some feedback, even those watching, if they've got some feedback on game advisors, feel free to let us know.
Awesome, thanks, Ruben. I know for my part that I had the pleasure of commentating the incredible Italy-Germany men's matchup. That was a long and torturous affair for the players, and there were a number of foul calls, legitimate ones. And oh, great layout tee! Fantastic stuff.
Sensational.
Anyway, my point was that the game advisors did a great job of helping the players officiate that match. and it was a gripping contest. If you haven't seen the the Germany versus Italy men's pool play game, I strongly recommend you get around it. And Mickey, GB back in control of the disc.
Indeed, and we had more picking up. Looks like they were isolating a downfield player, but now we're into their flow. A bit more. Stuck on that far sideline, proving very challenging. But again, an excellent Blady-esque flick. Well caught by the downfield player.
Yeah, so a blade is the word we use to describe a throw that keeps the disc in a predominantly vertical position rather than trying to fly it downfield. You are piffing it as fast as you can, and they can get there quickly, but they can be difficult to catch.
Yeah, and I think really that was a very technical throw because he needed that throw to get there quickly. The player was only open for a very brief moment. It wasn't a leading throw where you want that flat sitting disc. You needed a hard blade that was going to drop really quickly for that small window of separation that his downfield cutter had. So really well executed.
That is a beautiful blade dropping right into his receiver's lap, and Christian Turville with a phenomenal D to give the Brits possession. And as we saw in the first half, a break-up wind will often manufacture a second break downwind immediately after it, and the Brits have done it again. So GB now leading this match 10-5. And the Filipino team, I would say, haven't done a whole lot wrong. Just a simple mistake at World Championship level is all it takes, and your opposition will punish you, and GB have done exactly that. So, Mickey, what can the Filipinos do now? It's go for broke time. They've probably tried all their usual strategies. Can you think of anything that they could do to try to get back into this match before they are knocked out of this tournament?
Look, I think at this point in the game, the Filipinos have nothing to lose by just going out there and doing something completely wacky. So I don't know whether that involves, concentrating a lot of players around the disc, or trying to force to a different sideline, or maybe force to a weaker thrower on the GB team. But they need to try something outlandish, something really crazy, because clearly all of their standard plays haven't quite had the results that they need. That's defensively. Offensively, all I'm going to say is it's difficult. The wind makes it difficult. And I think it seems like the Filipinos tend to concentrate most of their play within about 10 to 15 metres of the disc. And given catching and throwing those throws is much harder in the wind, you can't put as much touch on them, they come in quite hard. Yeah. It does render that strategy very difficult in conditions like this.
Ruben, down on the ground, you've got some news for us?
Yeah, just during that timeout, I'm not sure if you noticed, but the two Spirit captains just came together, had a chat about how the game was going, things both teams could maybe work on, and just checked in how things were. So that's a fantastic thing to see, and I think we really want to encourage between the teams to have those conversations.
Thanks, Ruben. So every team elects one or more Spirit captains. Spirit of the game is central to the sport of Frisbee, and it's what allows self-officiation to work so well. And there is a prize at every tournament for the team showing the best spirit, and it's not a consolation prize. It's taken very, very seriously, and teams put a lot of effort into playing with the most spirit they possibly can, and they're rated by their opposition in terms of their fouls and body contact, their fair-mindedness, and all aspects of spirit of the game.
Hey, come here, stalling too.
Hang on.
Okay. I don't think it worked this one.
Foul called. Contest or no contest? Uncontested.
On to 0.
Yep.
Okay, coming in, stalling 0.
So Ruben helping that discussion resolve correctly and quickly. Uncontested. Foul call. Oh, another massive bid. And wow, just as you said, Mickey, those short, sharp throws, that was a wide open look, and it just went through the hands of the pancake catch.
I think that's why we've seen Britain be so successful with their inside out looks, because you can place a lot of touch on them, and it's to a space rather than to a pinpoint direct player.
Yeah. So one of the things unique about the flight of a Frisbee is that you can put the disc into space and have it sit and wait for a player to run onto it, which is what Mickey is describing there. It's not like a ball where you throw it directly at the player you want necessarily. You can, in fact, one of the things we talk about in Frisbee is thrower initiated. When a thrower sees a dangerous space that they want to use, they simply put the disc out there and rely on one of their cutters to go and get it. The Filipinos now have their offensive flow working pretty well. They're going to try and use the width of the field. Oh! Excellent diving catch attempt from Villanueva, but he wasn't able to secure it.
Oh. It was really good there. Schechter tried to send the disc and get it to the far sideline. At this point so far, both teams have been essentially within 2 metres of the sideline closest to the camera, and I think that's why we've seen a few turns. But excellent centering movement by Schechter, even though it didn't result in a score.
Oh, wow. That was actually a wonderful throw, and it was countered by an even more incredible D. I didn't catch number 44 it was, which is Jonah Leak. He put on the afterburners and got after that disc and saved a certain Filipino goal. Look at that layout. Wonderful stuff. So GB, speculative upwind huck. They're going to try and use their height.
2 versus 1. Great pressure from the Filipinos.
Great read by Paulo Andaya. He was able to pressure that catch enough to prevent.
And here we are on this sideline again. Let's see. I think the team that wins this point will be the one that can use the other side of the field the best, because at the moment we're very concentrated here.
GB getting horizontal over and over again in an effort to get this disc. They are not slowing up in their efforts to win this game. And there we go. The Filipinos are finally no more than 3 metres from this sideline, Vicky. They've finally managed to punch it down the open side under immense downfield pressure. And they bring their score tally to 6. The GB players throughout that point getting horizontal over and over again in an effort to secure the disc, but eventually Paulo Andaya takes the catch in the end zone and secures the Filipino score.
And here the GB supporters on the far sideline. They've probably had some extensive flights to get all the way over here. I'm sure they're enjoying the sun more than the snow or the rain back home.
A flight just like Jonah Leak in this incredible D. He's gone to SGA Travel and booked a ticket. That is a mega leap, and he's happy about it too. Gets the finger wagging. So GB back on offense. Let's see what they can manufacture downwind.
Wow.
Well,
I got to say, 99 did an excellent job there of getting back position against his British defender. 99 from the Philippines, that is.
Miguel Javier Escasa.
Escasa. He recognised his players taller than him, his players bigger than them. Just got to get the back position so he can't move backwards and get the disc. And just unfortunate that another GB player came in to clean up the scraps. But excellent defence from him.
Yeah, great observation, Mickey. One of the things we're talking about is boxing out your opposition. And if you're a little shorter in stature, like myself, then boxing out can be the strategy you need to use if you're sitting under a piece of pie like we saw then. And Escasa did a great job. And as you say, probably would have successfully forced a D there were it not for a second GB player coming in to take the grab. So GB up now 11-6. Filipinos on 0. Win behind them. And if this point's like some of the previous ones we've seen, we can expect GB to get horizontal over and over again. I think these boys are looking to bolster their highlight reels, which is fine by us.
Absolutely. They're pressuring every pass, and as an offensive player, even if you know you're going to get the catch, that pressure, knowing your mark is right there, really takes off any continuation and makes it much harder to throw the next throw.
Oh, nice grab from Villanueva. He's been great this game. That was a clumsy bid. It is the responsibility of the defending player not to make contact with another player when making a bid for the disc. And we've got a travel call, which is sending the disc back. And it's important to note the distinction in WU24 rules that making contact with the disc first is not an excuse for causing physical contact with another player, which is in contrast to USAU rules. And it's for the safety of players, and I think it's absolutely the way Frisbee must be played. It's not acceptable to create physical contact just because you want to get the disc. We have a foul call. Looks like it's uncontested. Disc coming in on 0. Flores with the disc. He's been working with Wilbur Ogok throughout this game. That disc's gotten high. Wow. Flores managing to grab it despite the pressure from his defender. Oh, Flores! Looks like we've got a call. I'd love to talk up his diving catch regardless.
Was it pick called, was it? Pick called.
Wow, talk about STA travel,
Does it
book your
still count?
flight.
Let's
He
look at
epitomised
that one again. He's up there. Manufactured by Boeing is Flores. He's got wings. He's got legs too. He never stops running. I really have enjoyed watching him play. Wow, that was a narrow window to put the disc through. Philippines knocking on the door, and a cute little lefty backhand.
The Philippines really used the middle and the far side of the field a lot more that point compared to the last point, and I think we saw a lot more throwing to open spaces, a lot more players getting open than compared to jamming it down the jam hole. So that looked much cleaner than our last time. It looked a bit more level-headed as well.
I wonder if that's the first time jamming it down the jam hole has been used in an official sports broadcast. If so, I would.
That's
I'd
right,
like to...
cramming it down the cram hole. That's what it's called.
Well done, Mickey D. We will build you a trophy for that. So, this game may not be close on the scoreboard, but the intensity's been fantastic. A number of phenomenal layout grabs, including this one from Villanueva, who has been at the centre of a lot of the offence of this Filipino team. And that wasn't the only layout grab we saw throughout this point. And in the end, a simple little lefty backhand in for the score. And the score now is 11-7, GB are up, and they're on offence coming downwind.
And Amala again anchoring this O-line. He's had a sensational and composed game.
That was a well-manufactured cut from the deep space.
Yeah, did well to keep that disc alive. It looked like the Filipino player was closing in pretty close on these undercuts.
Just a bit of evasive action required there to keep the studs out of the back.
It's interesting, the GB undercuts seem to be coming from quite deep and also getting, 20, 25 metres when the disc is thrown, whereas you see the Filipino ones, they're quite short, choppy, almost generated without a fake out. So the disc moves a lot faster on the Filipino line, but they gain a bit less ground, it seems.
Oh, great D. Fantastic D from Wilbur Ogok. He's a handler, but that doesn't mean he's not a great defender as well. Wow, wouldn't it be something if the Filipinos could manufacture an upwind break here? Oh no, minor overthrow and it's out. To your earlier point, Mickey, I think what that shows in the GB cutting patterns is that the Filipinos are always worried about GB hitting those deep shots. So they're following those deep cuts all the way. And that means that when the cut comes back under, they can manufacture a lot of ground, where the Filipino deep cuts, the GB guys, not paying them anywhere near as much respect. And that means they need to work a larger number of shorter throws to cover the same ground.
Oh, look at this deep cut here. Sensational work. That was Lachlan Fisher. I beg your pardon, sorry. Piers Nicholas cutting deep.
Oh! That disc almost hit the GB player in the back. He
Bit of
did not have
confusion
eyes
there.
on it. I think that was Piers Nicholas, perhaps. Perhaps an up call from his teammates might have been useful at that point. The Filipino cutters need to be careful not to cut off each other's cuts here. That's nice work. Isolating one player in the middle of the field. And we have a speculative downfield deep look. It's sitting up high. That is a phenomenal throw.
Sensational.
I don't know what happened to Sam Wilson there. Looks like he's twinged a hammy perhaps. That's really unfortunate for Sam. He's clutching at the back of his leg as he walks off, but that is a fantastic score for Paul Richie Mariano. And the throw from Quinjuna Villanueva.
And again, we're seeing that lovely IO leading backhand to score these upwind throws. It's just amazing. Great control there. Put it out into space, and even though the GB defender probably had an extra foot of height, not a chance.
Yep, that was a wonderful shot. And it was a great example of throwing to space. If he'd thrown that disc at his cutter, you'd think it would have been defended for sure, but he threw it at a wide open space on the other side of the field. And no one had a play on that disc except for his intended recipient. And that is a phenomenal throw. So that's exciting. The Filipinos have got an upwind break. And if nothing else but for the spectacle of this game, I'd be quite happy for them to register another D here. Bring the scores back into the same postcode and give us an exciting finish to this match.
Oh, wow, that ball was so big it went out the back of the field.
By a significant distance. That was an 80, 90, 100 metre throw, that one.
It just gives everyone an indication of how windy it is out here. It does feel like it's picked up just in the space between those points now.
Yeah, agreed, Mickey. I reckon I could launch a push pass about half the field in these conditions, and not because I'm good at it. So, because the disc landed out of bounds, of course, the Brits can take it from the brick mark. And they're set up in a horror. I've been quite impressed by the work of Conrad Wilson. He's a big man, very tall, wiry frame, and he's got all the throws as well.
Yeah, they're looking very controlled here. They're also getting it off this sideline quite effectively. Whether the Filipino marks should be wrapping around more, I don't know, but... Oh, bad luck. But yeah, it looks like the GB team wasn't having any difficulty centering it and swinging it to the far side, which definitely helps in this win.
Yeah, that was a good look by Wilson as the Filipinos jack it. And overthrown by the barest of margins. Matt Crespo was not far from hauling that one in. And in a win like this, it can often be a viable strategy to simply punt it for yards when you're going downwind, because you don't want to create a short field turnover.
Oh.
And we've got a strip call. So that is Wilson, who caught the disc just prior to the Filipino defender making contact. And seemingly no argument from the Filipinos. As Wilson sends a lovely IO huck. That's going to sit. That is a beautiful throw.
Wow. So composed. Sensational. We had Canning reeling that one in, and the throw from Orcock. Beautiful use, throwing upwind. It means that you can actually throw some leading throws if you throw low and you're very patient. And I think they just demonstrated that even though throwing upwind, you can actually use the wind to your advantage.
The other thing we saw there when that throw went up to Orcock, that almost all of the other players on the field were behind the disc. So that was a very well-timed upwind punt from Wilson, because when the disc is going to sit and wait, the less number of defenders you can have come charging in on it, the better. And so best to unleash one of those throws when there's only a few people upwind of you. And that was a well-timed, perfectly executed strike from Wilson, and he is absolutely an asset to this team. So the Filipinos having to play this offensive point upwind due to the success of GB, and that is an uncatchable pull that has rolled out of bounds. So Paulo Andaya will be forced to take that from the front cone of the end zone.
So we've got GB set up in a match defense here. It looks like largely in front of their players. Probably going to be trying creating havoc in and around the disc like they have been in all of the other points quite successfully.
That's a nice upline cut. John Titular. And they've managed it again. And looks like we've got a call. Let's see if Ruben's mic can give us any insight as to what's happened down there.
I came so right in front of you. Just you were coming back under, I thought. And I didn't move. I didn't move my feet. That's all.
So you called a foul?
Contested foul.
Yeah. He called the foul?
Yeah.
And you're contesting?
Yeah.
That's it? Okay.
So, not much help needed from Ruben there. The player's able to come to a conclusion very quickly, and the game's back underway. Nice use of the short space there. Mickey, the Filipinos have been largely restricted to the far sideline in this point, and just as we say that, they've hit the fat side. And a nice bid from Jacob De Leon, but he wasn't able to secure it. That was an overthrow, and GB back in control.
Wow, Ollie Dodd centering that disc beautifully from the sideline. And there's Schechter, who we've seen many times before. Oh, what an unfortunate drop. That was a beautifully weighted throw.
I wonder if he had one eye on the
on the sideline,
on the end line, yeah, and one eye on the disc. And in the end, when you chase two rabbits, you usually don't catch either of them. So my advice would be, when you're in that situation, worry about the disc first. If you don't catch it, doesn't matter whether you're inbounds or not. So the Filipinos with all that work to do again. Loving seeing these low release, ripped backhands, heaps of rotation on the disc. Very stable flight. It's a joy to watch. So when you're throwing up wind, typically the lower you go, the less wind there will be. And so the strategy tends to be to release the disc from as low as you possibly can. And we've got a call.
Travel called.
So when you catch the disc, you have to slow down as quickly as you can, and you're not allowed to change direction until you've established a pivot. Sometimes in a quick give and go offense like this, it can be questionable as to whether you were slowing down as much as you could when you caught the disc. And unfortunately, the Filipinos have turned it and GB will pick up through Schechter. He's called a timeout. So a big thanks to Emma and Toms. They have been fueling the volunteers and the crew at this event with snack bars, bags of nuts, delicious smoothies, and it's much appreciated. There's no added sugar in any of their products. Very healthy choice and delicious. My personal recommendation remains Green Power Smoothie. I've tried a few, but that one still in top spot. And
I've yet to enjoy the smoothies. I'll have to see if any are circulating.
Get into the Green Power, Mickey. It's good stuff. Their cloudy apple juice goes all right too, I might add.
Eco-friendly, Green Power?
Well, I think it just has random ingredients in it, so they didn't know what to call it. It's green. It doesn't look tasty. It looks like a mashed avocado, basically. But when you put it in your mouth, it's a good result.
Well, avocados are in season in Perth, so it's good.
So, Ruben, I might quickly cross down to you for a quick discussion about the pick continuation rule. It's a misunderstood one in Frisbee circles. Maybe while we've got a moment here, you could quickly run us through it.
Sure, so if there's a pick called while the disc is in the air, or the thrower's in the act of throwing, and there's a turnover, that turnover is always going to stand. That can never come back. But if the pick is called before the thrower is in the act of throwing, and the pass is a turnover, it can sometimes still be a turnover, but the question the players need to ask is, did that pick or the actual call itself affect the play? And if it didn't, you should just let whatever happens stand. But if you heard the pick and so you stopped cutting, and the pick was called before the throw, then it's reasonable that the disc should go back in those instances. So always ask, did the pick or the call affect the play if the pick was called before the throw?
And just one clarification there, if the disc is in the air and you hear a pick call, what should you do?
Go and catch it, because it's going to be a turnover if it hits the ground.
Thanks, Ruben. You've heard it here from the the chair of the Rules Committee. That is straight from the horse's mouth of the Filipinos that punched it in. GB called a timeout, and it's worked against them. The Filipinos have held up win. That's fantastic.
Yeah, one of the few throws from Schechter we've seen that hasn't quite been on point, and the Philippines definitely took advantage of that floating over the top of one of the players, clean up the scraps there.
Yeah, great defensive grab and a little bit of incidental contact, but both players contesting that space, and I think reasonable that play should continue. Jacob De Leon gets the credit for that defensive grab, and then they've moved the disc quickly upwind. And we see
these tight little corners and windows in the end zone. You see the GB scoring with these lovely crossfield leading throws, and the Philippines just a very different strategy, which obviously works well for them. The small, zappy throws.
So GB again with another upwind offensive point to contend with. The Filipinos with a big OI pull. OI short for outside in.
Habgood on the sideline here.
Wilson again with another deep strike, and it is... Whoa, I wanted to say it was perfect. I don't know. Was that a perfect throw? Just a misread, Mickey? What's your take on that?
Look, it's a very difficult throw to a player that's essentially in the same channel of the field as you. You've got to be very skillful to do it. It looked like very good execution from my point of view. Yeah, probably could have been caught, I think. But it's hard to say in these conditions.
So, Mickey talking about the channel there. Essentially that means it's very difficult to connect a leading pass straight over the top of your intended receiver. And throwers, when given the opportunity, would typically hope their receiver is in a different lane of the field, if you like, so that they can throw to a space that receiver runs into. And forgive me for picking sides here, but I wouldn't be against the idea of the Filipinos racking up a break here to make the scoreline interesting. And they've elected to take a timeout.
They're still in this game. They're doing exceptionally well, the Philippine team.
Absolutely. The score's 9-12. If they're able to put this one in, they'll be just 2 points behind GB. So we're going to see here the throw from Wilson, who winds up, and you can see that he's intended, here's Wilson with the disc now, and his receiver has cut down the same channel, and the throw's got to go directly over the top of him. And as you say, Mickey, all the angles have got to be perfect in order to make a completion there.
A lot of factors that have to align Swiss cheese model for that one to work out. So, I mean, the throw was exceptional, but very difficult.
I think as well in these conditions, when you've got an upwind look open, the odds say you should take it, even if it's not 100% that you're going to complete it. So I don't think Wilson or his intended receiver would be too unhappy. That was a shot worth taking, and it just didn't come off on that occasion. And big thanks to the Spud Shed. They've donated heaps and heaps of fresh fruit and food for the whole team here at this event. And if you're in the area, we'd appreciate it if you got your next load of groceries from the Spud Shed. We've got a desk full of apples up here, and the moment Mickey and I put these headsets off, we're tucking in.
Apple a day, doctor away.
You should know, you're a nurse. So is it true? Does an apple a day really work? Because in my experience, all it did was give my brother cavities.
Look, it's not my primary food choice, but you know, mango season at the moment. I've got nothing against apples. There are so many types though.
I agree with you about the mangoes. Just before I came to this event, I stripped about 30 of them and froze them so that I can make smoothies for the next month. Here we go. The Filipinos looking to get a break here, and the wind is heavily at their backs. It's really picked up again. Christian De Vera with the disc. Looking for a little up. Oh, fantastic D! That was Chris Hapgood, I think, who read the developing play and got to the intended reception spot before the receiver did. And that's just a misthrow.
The wind has really picked up. It makes centering the disc extremely difficult. We're seeing a lot of these elite level players essentially throwing it to the ground, demonstrating the difficulty. Also means that just reaching around your mark to center the disc or execute a break, far more challenging.
Yeah, you can probably even hear the wind in our microphones now. It's really picked up. So GB with a very speculative pass, and the Filipinos might score just by letting the disc roll to the end zone. As they flip it quickly, and it's a comedy of errors now. Schechter's just going to chuck it. No, he's hung on to it. Oh, I beg your pardon, that may not have been checked out. And, oof, wow, GB cleaning up the scraps.
There's a lot of contact there, but no foul called.
That's nice use of the fat side. And that, okay, they've called it onwards. That looked like it hit the ground to me. I didn't have the best perspective though. So, play on. And that's a nice pass. Oh, wow! Millimeters away from a score. That's got to hurt.
Like you said, Cole, this wind is gusty as well. If it was a stable, consistent wind, it would maybe be a bit easier to respond to, but the nature of the gusts is you think you're going to catch a disc and then it drops or it goes a bit higher and another turn.
Yeah, really inconsistent flight of the disc here. And I wonder if the Philippines should just punt it downwind for yards at this point. A short field turnover would be a disaster.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there, Cole.
And that's exactly what they've just coughed up. I would have thrown that one as hard as I could. And they've got away with one there.
We haven't really seen many hucks from the Philippines team this, probably in the last 2/3 of the game, I'd say. The action's been very concentrated around the disc, probably because the marks are so enormous. The hucks would be pretty difficult to execute.
That was an attempt, but wonderful tee.
Yeah, we saw some great pressure on the mark from Conrad Wilson, and then his teammate able to pick up the scraps.
And that's another timeout. That's at least the second in this point, isn't it? I think. So, this last point's been a comedy of errors, and we've seen discs flying, the wind helping and hindering both teams on this occasion. Both teams really struggling to get a handle on the disc. This is reminding me of the final from the recent Australian Mixed Nationals. Alex Latamatos, an extremely powerful handler and member of the Australian men's team, the Dingoes, launched an upwind huck, which looked great out of the hands, travelled 40 metres upfield, then gained about 40 metres of elevation and landed 30 metres behind him.
Happens to the best players in conditions like this, I think.
Absolutely. These guys are doing a great job with the conditions they've been handed, and if it looks tough on screen, you should see it here in person. The wind is absolutely blowing a gale. And GB now at pretty much the halfway mark of the field into a very stiff breeze. They'll be looking for just a throw or two to get them to the end zone, I would think. They've got one off successfully.
And a pick called.
Stall coming in on 4, indicated by the mark, Gerard Castor.
Counting with the disc, probably looking to get it to that far side of the field. Much easier said than done, though.
Oh, great grab.
Sensational grab. That was Habgood. He's been playing very consistently this game and been pulling down some excellent throws.
So Wilson has shown himself to be one of the best players on the field, and even he was unable to secure that one. So that's just a sign of how difficult these conditions are. So the Philippines, again, heading downwind. And the beginning of this point was some time ago, but I'm pretty sure GB started on offense.
They were looking really good than the Philippines. They were using that far sideline really well, creating a bit more space than we'd seen them do, but unfortunate turn there.
They'd literally made it 99% of the required journey. And, oh! That was very close to a D from Paul Richie Mariano. Wilson's going to punt it. And it's caught just shy of the end zone by Orcock. And they've scored again.
Sensational. And Amala, the person who's normally throwing the hucks, gets to take a stat in the other direction as the receiver. GB is looking strong to secure the game at this point.
So we are still 12 minutes or thereabouts away from time cap. And GB now on 13. So not
really
far away.
Courageous huck from, I'm just trying to see who it was, sorry, but there was a lot of deep space. I think he recognised that GB probably wasn't going to get much under. Just put a lot of faith in his teammates there.
Wilson,
with an
I think
IO
it was.
flick.
And Orcock was wide open. In fact, that's a replay of a point, perhaps 3 or 4 points ago, where Wilson sent a disc to Orcock that paused just prior to the end zone line. So GB 13, Philippines 9, and the Philippines would be hoping for a moment's respite from the wind, which has been pretty torrid.
Unrelenting.
That's a wonderful pull. And it's landed just barely a metre in bounds, I'd say, and then rolled out. So the Philippines will take it from the front cone.
GB defensive line Schechter off this point. Interesting to see who handles if there's a turn. Wow, that was Christian Turville cleaning up the scraps there. Sometimes it's easier to stand back, let your big guys go in, jump early, make everyone else jump early, and then catch it at the back, which he did well. Look, I love that look. It didn't come off, but there was so much space out there. Telling his players where he wants them to be, but a very difficult throw.
So the GB defensive line happy to continue playing match D here.
So we've got George Gayton poaching off a bit, helping out in the deep space.
So the Philippines trapped on this sideline, and their dump is not completed, and that's going to give GB every opportunity to put this in, and that would bring them to match point.
And we have Turville picking up for GB. Oh, I think there was a foul call that looks like.
Possibly a pick. As,
Looks as if
Ollie Dodd was making his way out of the stack.
I pushed it.
Okay. I don't have perspective from over there between the two of you.
Being
What's the
sent
still count?
back.
Is there a still count? What number? Nothing? One?
Interesting to see the Filipino defenders set up behind their player, even on such a short field as this. That's an odd decision. Not sure I loved Dodd's reaction to that one.
No. It would have been good to see a bit more help D, I think. It was quite clear that that was a player isolated, and you know, it's always good to take away the other team's first preference, make them pick their second or their third preference, even if it does involve a bit of poaching.
Absolutely. So GB now have got themselves in a very strong position to win this game. They're up 14-9, and the Filipinos would need a Herculean performance to come back from here. But they can be proud of what they've done at this tournament. They have made their way to the pre-quarters and put in a really strong showing, and it'd be nice to see them register another score, get to double figures, and
it's been great seeing lots of the teams from the Asian region coming over, because I think the championships are in Perth. It's a lot more achievable and affordable for them to come to Australia down under than make the journey to, you know, the USA or Europe, where we've seen a lot of the past championships. So it's great to see some, you know, new teams, including the Philippines, Malaysia, Chinese Taipei.
absolutely, Mickey. In fact, a lot of those teams have travelled a shorter distance than possibly some of the Australian competitors from the East Coast. Perth is very, very remote. It is, in fact, the most remote capital city in the world. And New Zealand is Australia's closest neighbour, I think. And yet the New Zealanders are a 7.5-hour flight away from here. That is a phenomenal deep shot. That is a phenomenal deep shot. And Wilbur Ogok brings it in.
Keep the candle burning. They're not going to go down without a fight, these Filipinos.
Absolutely not. That
14-10 to GB.
That throw was on the money.
And it's nice, we haven't seen the Filipinos execute many long throws for a while. It does help that it was downwind, but perfectly executed.
Absolutely. Christian De Vera, he'll be happy with that one. He's hit Wilbur Ogok, who's been very dangerous on both sides of the disc, behind it and in front. And GB now with the opportunity to close out this game and book a spot in quarters. GB, a proud ultimate country. They've contested at World Championship level for many, many years. They have played the World Games many times, and fair to say their status as the premier ultimate country in Europe is under attack. They did not qualify for the most recent World Games because with the World Ultimate and Guts Championship being held in Europe, there was a lot of competition from other countries, so they'll be looking to consolidate and continue to improve. And here they go. They're on 0, possibly for the final time in this game.
And the winner of this game, of course, will be going through to a quarter-final against the Australian under-24 team, the Goannas, which will be another incredible fight.
Acres of space there. GB have, oh! That would have been a phenomenal way to finish the game. But the Philippines just with the smallest of opportunities here.
Well, man, GB's playing catch-up a bit. They've moved it very effectively from that near sideline.
The wind seemingly not choosing to write the script for the Filipinos here. It's still very strong and blowing into them. But wow, they're doing a great job. Oh, that's a cheeky little backhand IO. There's no...
Just teasing the Brits, I think. Come and get it.
There's no minimum throw requirement in Ultimate, although as we saw in the Japanese v USA women's game yesterday, it does require more than just a handoff, and the Japanese tried to execute a pass so short that one of them caught it before the other one had let go. Wow, the Filipinos are doing a phenomenal job. They're literally a metre from the end zone now. Oh, no, it's a straddle. He's not in yet. De Vera, he's the one who threw the huck.
Wow. They find space where you don't think there's space.
Oh, no!
Oh,
Drop at the last second.
Devastating. And we have a sensational long cut coming off here from Piers Nicholas.
And the wind has not done Piers any favours. That one is gone.
Yeah, he had endless separation there, but it's never easy in these conditions. And the Philippines have another turn here. They'll be feeling pretty inspired after that last performance. But they're coming off a static disc now.
Well, they've punted it, and it's not coming back in. So that will likely travel a good 20 or 30 yards back downfield. Oh, it looks like there's a call, possibly a foul on the throw. Ruben, did you get a look at that?
No, I didn't get a view of that. I was watching the downfield receivers.
You and me both. So, it is of course the responsibility of the mark not to contact the thrower during the throwing motion. The mark, if there is contact, the mark needs to have been perfectly still.
We've got a replay here.
So if the contact occurred prior to the disc being released, then that is a foul. And they've failed to come to an agreement on the circumstances, it looks to me. So I think we might have a contested foul.
Looks like we're bringing the spirit captain from GB, number 10, Amala. who we've seen anchor their O-line throughout the game. So the role of the game advisors while providing advice about the rules is also to try and keep the game running along nice and smoothly to make it a bit more spectator friendly. They usually like to have discussions resolved
Contested foul, stalling 6.
within 60 seconds. So Ruben's just told us a contested foul. Discus coming in on stalling 6.
So for my part, I often see defenders get antsy when a foul is called on the throw, and the simple solution to that is set your mark up half a metre further back. If there's no contact, they can't call a foul. Oh, phenomenal! What a read! That's a great D. Wow, De Vera is playing some game, particularly here towards the end, and his teammates have done him the disservice of grassing that throw. So GB, again, in control of the disc.
Canning picking up here. Oh, look at that crossfield space.
You just want to see it go there, and there it is.
Yeah, excellent. So we had Sam Wilson picking up that last goal there for GB. So that seals the deal. 15-10 GB win. So that will take them through to the quarterfinal against Australian men's, the Goannas. It should be a ripper game.
Yeah, the Goannas and GB are long-time rivals, and we look forward to every Australia versus Great Britain matchup. Of course, it goes back to our colonial past, a rivalry that lasts 200 years. So we look forward to that as we see the final strike. And wow, what a D that was from De Vera.
And it looks like the rivalry is not only in the men's division. The Australian mixed team, the Blue Bottles, will also be fighting off against GB in a final. So be interesting to see the results from that. And there's that last throw again.
There's that last score. Wilson hauling it in. GB with a well-deserved win. They've done well. They deserve their place in the quarterfinals. And I, for one, will be on the sideline watching them face off against the Goannas. That will be an exciting matchup. They're two tall, athletic teams. And in particular, I'd quite like to see Wilson matching up against the tall Australian players. Liam Grimmond, chief among them.
Rob Andrews.
And Rob Andrews, perhaps. What a matchup that'd be. So, as we see some highlights from this game, it has been our pleasure. We congratulate the Filipinos for a fantastic showing here at the Under-24 World Ultimate Championships, and we wish GB the best of luck as they head into their sudden death quarterfinal. And with that, my name's Cole Fink.
I'm Michaela.
Michaela Dignam, thanks so much for joining me, and we will see you again very soon.